What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We're taking a look at Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 here, running on the ROG Ally Z1 Extreme, and this is one of the many games that has really been impressing me when it comes to game performance on this handheld. So let's kind of get into it here. As far as settings, nothing special, just something I picked to kind of get us running here, sticking with 1080p for this video, unlimited on the frame rate, and FSR 1 instead of 2 because I am getting a bit better performance even though visual quality is not as good, and then everything else is pretty much lower off except for a few other settings that kind of help me out here. There's a lot you can do to adjust this game to play the way you want, but this is just kind of a baseline of where I've been hanging out playing the game and checking it out without going down to 720p yet, which you could do and certainly get more performance as well. But right here, I was actually really surprised that most of the maps when it comes to the arena shooting, even at the 15-watt performance mode, would keep me in the 60s and 70s as far as my FPS with these settings, and that's pretty impressive. I've played a good amount of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 over on the Steam Deck for having Windows installed there. And it's been a great experience, but it can be difficult to get 60 FPS in these modes, especially anything that's not the arena shooters. So this was pretty cool. Now jumping up to the 25-watt turbo mode here in handheld, still not plugged in, we'll get a significant increase in our FPS here. And this is where I can more live in the 80s and 90s most of the time in a lot of these arena maps when it comes to multiplayer here, which feels fantastic on this 120 FPS screen. The 60s and 70s of the 15-watt feel fine, but they're still just not quite as snappy. The system's just not as fast as when we're running here in turbo mode. Now, I do realize you're going to get about an hour of battery life with this, but for me, what I'm doing most of the time, that's not going to be an issue, but it sure is cool to see what we can do flat out here on battery. Now, plugging this in and getting the 30-watt here, you actually can increase your FPS by just a little bit and add a few more to it and live closer to that 100 FPS range. And this is really depending on the mode you're playing in as well, as I'll show you later on. This is also with auto on the VRAM, which is why you see 358 used up there, and the rest is over in regular RAM. 8G works extremely well also, and may even get you 3 to 5 FPS more. 4G does introduce a good bit of stuttering for me, and so I just left it with auto for this video, but you can certainly up it to 8G just to get a little bit more, but it's not going to change things a lot when it comes to performance. Now here in Ground War, I started off with 15 watt as well, and even when it boosts to 19, it does suffer, and I did expect that. Ground War can be tough to run. However, the 15 watt mode was running it better than I kind of really expected it to, but the CPU has trouble keeping up, and we get more big dips that we don't want in multiplayer. And when we jump into the helicopter here, which was a lot of fun to kind of fly around and see what I could do without dying first to get some more performance here. And I was mostly in the 40s up here, but I did dip down to 23 at one point and back up on 15 watts. So did have some trouble. Now saving the helicopter, I wanted to land over here and switch us back over into our 25 watt mode here. So turbo mode not plugged in, and instantly a nice big bump in our FPS with our helicopter here, and I can now fly out to the same area, and even though it may not be perfect, the performance here was really good as well, basically keeping us in the 50s with some dips when it comes to 25 watts handheld, and that's just flying around here in the helicopter. When you get down on the ground, the performance with the 25 watt mode, it's boosting a bit now, not plugged in, but we are still getting a great frame rate here, pushing to 50 up to 60, and aiming is good because when you aim in and out, it's not dropping frames. I've had issues over that on Windows on deck where when you're aiming like that, it will drop frames. So that was really nice to see. Now switching over here to plugged in, you see another big bump, actually more than we see in the arena style shooters because of the CPU needed in Ground War. We actually gain like another 10-15 FPS easy here when plugged in, so definitely offering an even better experience in Ground War when plugged in at 30 watt. Now this was really probably the mode that benefited the most from being plugged in, but Warzone does somewhat as well. So let's jump over there and take a look at that for a final thing. Now, Warzone and Battle Royales aren't really my thing these days. I haven't really gotten into them in a long time, but I wanted to come in here anyways, just for sake of the video and see what kind of performance we got. And I knew this would definitely run worse than the arena style maps or than Ground War. So I jumped in here with this and starting off with plugged in 30 watt turbo mode, and performance is pretty good actually with the same settings across the board as I started the video, and we are able to kind of hover around that 60 FPS range. It's really difficult to get above that. I've messed with some other settings on my own over the weekend and played with some different things in there, and it can be tough to really push this mode, Warzone, above that 60 mark. But as long as we can get there, it's definitely playable. I didn't have a whole lot of stutters and frame time issues. There's some in there, but it's not too bad. Now, if I go ahead and unplug and let this thing go down to regular 25 watt handheld turbo mode, we lose about 10 FPS, maybe a little bit more. So this mode isn't impacted as much as Ground War is, but it certainly does take a hit and is impacted when it comes to its performance between the 25 and the 30 watt. Let's say the arena shooter mode, your regular multiplayer mode, is affected the least. However, there is a difference between all of them. Now out here, there's not a lot going on, so our frame rate's fairly consistent, and I spent a lot of time daring people to just come kill me. I made a lot of noise, no sniping, no nothing, nobody. I never saw anybody the entire time I was making this video, so it is what it is. We drop down to 15 watt here, and what's going to happen as it stabilizes is we'll get a couple little stutters, and I'll take us into an area where it's doing a little bit more work, and you'll be more in the 40s here in 15 watt mode, performance mode, when it comes to Warzone on here. And when you get into battles, it's really going to suffer. So if you're not in turbo mode and you're actually trying to play and there's a bunch of people around, I think you're going to have issues in performance mode when it comes to Warzone. But handheld turbo mode or plugged in are pretty good. When it comes to the other modes like Ground War, definitely want to be handheld turbo mode or plugged in, where there's a significant difference in performance. And if you're playing regular multiplayer, really 15 watt mode works really well for 60s and 70s for FPS. Of course, it feels better on turbo, but depending on what you want for battery life and all of that. But across the board though, performance very impressive for Modern Warfare 2 here on the Ally, as are a lot of other games that I'm testing and getting into. Really happy when you get down to it and you really start playing these games and testing them out with the different modes and the different dedications of VRAM and that type of thing. The performance you can really start squeezing out of this thing, and Asus isn't even done ironing out all of our bugs and performance issues, BIOS issues. We are on 319 here and that kind of thing, but ultimately really impressive and having a great time with this device, guys. Thanks a lot for coming to check out the video as always, and I'll see you in the next one.